It sounds like it was good training for what you're doing now, in
It
the sense
was.
of the in-depth and the...
In-depth, and also I was able to do a lot of online work, and I was able to be part of startups, because Civil Beat is a startup, and at the Rocky Mountain News I was able to do some other kinds of online startups. And it was great preparation, because what we're doing at Civil Beat is in some ways reinventing that old institution, saying, you know what, we don't have to think about it like we're a newspaper with the presses and the paper. What do people need? What does the democracy need in 2010? What do we need for better government in 2010? And let's not get hung up on whether it's a newspaper or a television station. It's something different. And so we're sort of approaching it differently, and I sort of bring this journalistic background, while Mr. Omidyar and others bring a tremendous technical expertise.
You and I
a
have never
societal
met
commitment.
before today, right?
We never have.
You're giving me some things that are, it's music to my ears when you say that, what does democracy need? You know, I can imagine maybe one or two people in the universe who have a thought like that. Particularly in Hawaii, where, as you know, I'm a member of the minority party, where 90% of the power, the votes, the patronage is in one party and 10% is in the other. And just because it's Democrats, it doesn't mean that the Republicans would be any better, because it's the human condition.
Right.
And democracy, when you speak of it, is the whole. And to say, what does democracy need? You know, the traditional startup question is what Henry Kaiser says, find a need and fill it, and then you can start business. My other life, by the way, is doing startups also. Not in websites, but just general business here and around the world. We've done 10 countries, et cetera. So what does democracy need? What has Civil Beat come up with in terms of what we need in Hawaii? Because I've certainly got some answers.
Well, to me,
I'm
number
one,
I think people need real in-depth information about the situation here, and take what you just described, the one-party dominance. We decided that a central issue in Hawaii is the impact of one-party dominance on the state. I agree with you. It doesn't matter which party. It's the fact that there's essentially it's a one-party state to some. You know, I know we have a Republican governor, but it's a one-party dominance. So a lot of our political coverage comes through the prism of what does it mean for us as a community that we have a one-party dominance the way we do. So the way we're kind of approaching issues here is just different. And to me, what it says is, we're going to ask tough questions, and seek the answers fearlessly, and we're going to share them with the community in such a way that they're readily accessible, they're easy to use, and that they can be the basis for an informed discussion and debate in which we will participate. So we're trying to cut through the haze and go and ask good questions for people.
And John, this may not be a fair question, but the question arises that you have so much of a social conscience in what you're saying. Can you withstand the slings and arrows of costs and expenses and otherwise bottom lines, which many companies live and die by?
And we will too. We're a business, and it will be very important. I mean, obviously, we're trying to create something that people will value and they will support us. So we believe we can. One reason is if you look at a traditional newspaper, there's an enormous cost structure related to the printing, distribution, and paper, right? When I was running the Rocky Mountain News, about 60% of our costs lay just in production and transportation.
60%?
60%.
The paper, the ink.
Yeah, typically at a newspaper, 10% of the costs go to the newsroom. It could be between 8 and 16.
But most people don't know that.
No, they don't. So most costs. But if you go to Civil Beat, we're essentially a newsroom with some software developers, a software development team, a small marketing team, and that's it. So and a sort of an operations team. So we're very, very lean.
Lean and mean.
We're lean and mean, and we're trying to control our costs and focus on the right things, which is content that people will care about and that matters to the community, and that's what we're doing.
You know, some of that, John, implies investigative reporting.
It does.
That means digging is sometimes not being necessarily the nice guy.
That's correct.
I can remember someone who was a judge or who is a judge now who used to be a reporter, would even to the governor stick it in your face. Governor, did you really mean to say that? I mean, right now we've got whatever you say goes. There's not really the challenge that used to be.
And we're running into that people here are not used to the kinds of questions we ask. For example, we get rejected all the time by, say, the Department of Education, which never has the information we ask for. Like, we've asked the Department of Education of the state of Hawaii, how many teachers have you fired over the past 5 years? You'd think that any organization would be able to answer that question, right? Kind of fundamental for a unionized organization. We don't have that information. You know that is not true. I mean, I know that's not true.
It's true.
Of course they have that information. They may not have it in exactly the form that we requested it in, so they're using technicalities not to answer the question. But we're asking those questions. We're doing the same with the police department, looking into how we think human trafficking and the issue of slavery in the contemporary world is a serious issue. And we think that in Hawaii, placed where it is, we're exploring human trafficking. So one of the things we've been doing is asking the police department for we want its records for how they've been making arrests related to prostitution, anything related to prostitution. It's very difficult to get cooperation. Try talking to the police chief, basically has nothing to say. So to me, it seems like we're going to run into a lot of walls, and trust me, we'll keep going because we're determined to get to the bottom of important questions.
How about fireworks? Did you ever
fireworks
ask
is Well, fireworks
Did you ever get any answers out of
I don't know how, fireworks seems to me like a community question. There's no good answer.
The community is fed up with it, quite frankly.
But there is a cultural side to fireworks, so
Yes.
so you have to find a way to deal with it, and I think the community can find its way there with leadership. I'm not sure there's real investigative journalism necessary with fireworks.
In terms of enforcement, people are wanting to know, hey, we got all these things on the books, but no one ever gets caught, or they get slapped on the wrist, or maybe one, I think it was the 2009 New Year's Eve, there was just an explosion. I mean, as a Vietnam veteran, it sounded like Vietnam, quite frankly. It was so loud, so noisy.
Right.
I mean, it was beautiful in some places, but it was just extreme. And people said, hey, enough already. How many of these guys actually got tickets because they were all over many districts?
Right. Well, that's a good question. How many of those guys got tickets? Now, that is the kind of question we would ask on fireworks, just like we did on homeless. Like when they started clearing the homeless out of the parks, I had made sure our reporters were asking the police, okay, how many citations did you issue related to the shopping carts in the park and the tents in the park? Where did you issue those citations? Let's find out if they're only issuing citations in one location and letting the same thing occur somewhere else with no penalty. So we are asking questions about things like that. Fireworks, we haven't had the big fireworks event, but you're right that on New Year's we will ask the questions you're asking.
And I'm a member of the Finance Committee in the House, and we asked the fire chief, we asked the police chief. The answers we got were maybe one or two people actually were cited. And then why were those the only ones that were cited? Well, you've got to see the person lighting it, and it kind of gets explained away, so to speak. But John, I would hope you would attend the Finance Committee meetings or the Ways and Means Committee meetings, because that's where government intersects basically with the public in terms of how their money is being spent.
Right.
And
that's a big focus for us, is how the money is being spent. I'll give you an example. I mean, we looked at the growth of city government under Mayor Mufi Hanneman. We found that in his almost 6 years as mayor, government grew by 39%, I believe. Government spending grew by 39%. Now that is during the worst recession in U.S. history, right, other than the Great Depression.
You're not on Charles's Youth campaign, right?
No.
I mean, I say it because in this town, when you say certain things, oh, you are aligned this way. You guys are in the middle saying, here's what the data says. And that's the way good governance should be, as I said earlier.
We should be asking,
what's the data say? What's the best way to make the decision?
Right. I mean, and state officials should be asking those questions, and we should be spurring the conversation and providing the information that might not otherwise be provided.